Located at the heart of Italy's Apennine Mountains, surrounded by oak forests, the town of Greccio is perched high atop one of the hills overlooking the Reatina Valley, also known as the Sacred Valley. According to tradition, a Greek family founded Greccio as a colony and settled down in this land after falling in love with the beauty of the surrounding countryside. Hence the origin of the name, Greccio, from the Italian Greci, meaning Greeks. The earliest records documenting this medieval town date back to the 10th and 11th centuries. They show how, from the remains of the ancient buildings, Greccio became a fortified medieval castle, surrounded by walls and protected in the middle of the forested mountains by 6 watchtowers. It was just over a mile away from the walled town that nearly 800 years ago, the inhabitants of Greccio witnessed something simple yet extraordinary, something that eventually spread across the entire world, the tradition of the Nativity Scene. It all began in the year 1223. Back from the Holy Land, a young hermit named Francis, known as the Poor Man of Assisi, passed through this area on his way back home. Struck by the breathtaking beauty of the countryside, which reminded him so much of the holy city of Bethlehem, Francis of Assisi had the idea of reliving the mystery of the birth of the Son of God. For this reason, he didn't hesitate to enlist the help of the local inhabitants, the citizens of Greccio.
Francis had one dream, to relive with his own eyes what newborn Jesus had suffered for humanity. And this dream of his came true on Christmas Eve 1223, when he asked his friend and owner of these caves, Giovanni di Greccio, known as Il Velita, to prepare in that cave what was needed for the event. All Francis needed was a stone, which is still there, a bit of hay, an ass, an ox, and an altar. Some say there was also a baby, a simulacrum. Others don't mention this simulacrum at all. But during the celebration, Giovanni Velita and others have a vision. On the stone they see a baby waking up from a long sleep. The baby smiles at Francis, and Francis embraces him and adores him.
Sonno lungo e sorride a Francesco. E Francesco lo abbraccia e lo adora.
And it was exactly in this place where in 1228 the hermitage of Greccio Sanctuary was erected. It was precisely the year the church celebrated the canonization of the Saint of Assisi. The beating heart of the hermitage sanctuary of Greccio is the cave, known as the Chapel of the Manger. In this place, on the altar, you can see a section of the original stone on which St. Francis placed a representation of Jesus during the first living nativity scene in 1223. The frescoes that adorn the front walls of the chapel in the cave depict 2 closely interwoven scenes, the Nativity in Bethlehem and the Nativity in Greccio. In the foreground of this latter fresco, Francis, clad in the white robe of a deacon, is kneeling in adoration of the child, and a bit above, the priest is celebrating Mass. In the background are the other protagonists of this wonderful event, among them Giovanni Vellita, his wife, and all the people of Greccio.
La notte del Natale del 1223.
The very first time in history the Nativity Scene was represented was here, on Christmas Eve in 1223. And because it was the first time, they had no reference to guide them. Greccio was indeed a rather atypical nativity scene, a bit different from what we can find now in Italian families and all over the world. It's the only one without the Virgin Mary and Joseph, because it was created with people from Greccio, so St. Francis, Giovanni Vellita, the people of Greccio, and then others like the shepherds of the Reatina Valley, and so on.
La fece da padrona.
Tutta la notte senza sosta gli ha preparato per te un'immagine del bambino Gesù.
Since that very distant year, every Christmas, the inhabitants of Greccio have relived those historic moments with pride.
Popolo di Dio, ascendiamo sannando.
Ogni anno rivochiamo questi fatti perché fanno
We
parte
relive these events every year because they form part of our history, part of our heart, and also part of the iconographic heritage, which is universal, which is acknowledged as universal, even though sometimes it's also, well, the victim of too much talking, because no religion is in contrast with the nativity scene and its iconography. Different people have different opinions, and this is good. But the nativity is something that unites us rather than divides us, and so Greccio too unites and doesn't divide.
Quindi Greccio unisce e non divide.
Mi chiamo Federico.
My name is Federico, and in the Nativity I represent St. Francis. I've been representing Francis for 8 years, but I was part of this even before, ever since I was 6. I'm 43 now, so I've been in this for quite a while.
Bene a voi, popolo prediletto. Sia rappresentare la figura di San Francesco, ma anche
I feel this thing also belongs to me, representing St. Francis, but also the common person from the people. It's all very emotional. If we all create our own nativity scenes today, it's because St. Francis created the first here on that night. So, of course, the most moving part is the last, where Francis built the nativity for the first time in history.
nell'atto di realizzare il presepe vivente vero e proprio.
Mi chiamo Natalino.
My name is Natalino, and I've been part of the Nativity of Greccio for 8 years now. For me, this is a great experience, seeing St. Francis by my side, very near me. And what else can I say? I'm fascinated by my role as the Lord of Greccio, happy to help the saint represent the Nativity in Greccio back in 1223.
Nel rappresentare il presepio di Greccio nel lontano 1223.